The text landed while I was kneeling on the studio floor with a measuring tape between my teeth and pins stuck in the cuff of my sweater. I'm leaving you tonight. I drained the joint account. Don't call. For a moment, the room did not move. The bolts of linen leaned in their racks like patient crowds. The winter light on the concrete was a pale, obedient gray. I stared at his name at the top of the screen, the same name that had once meant spare keys and Saturday pancakes, and felt something quiet and mechanical hum on inside me. The way a generator catches during a blackout. I swallowed the pin, set the tape down, and pressed the switch I had installed months ago, the separate bank app, the encrypted folder of screenshots, the number labeled Avery, attorney. I did not cry. My hands did not shake. I unpinned the cuff and told my client, a florist with soft shoulders and kind eyes, that our consultation would continue by email. After she left, I locked the studio door, closed the blinds halfway, and opened up my second life, the one that was built for days exactly like this. Step 1. Freeze what can still be frozen. I opened the app for the joint account. The balance spun down to $0. 00 with a cheerful animation that made my throat tighten with a laugh I did not have the energy to make. Below it, a neat column of transactions appeared. Airport cash withdrawal, a rideshare to PDX, Hotel E, check-in in Seattle, a flight to Phoenix on Sun Air 2000, 427, all in the span of 3 hours. He had written tonight, but his itinerary was already living in tomorrow. Step 2. Capture the ledger. I took screenshots of every charge and saved them into a folder named Cotton Samples on my cloud drive. Because sometimes safety is just a better label. A notification popped up: new sign-in to joint email 3:41 p.m. Unfamiliar device. I tapped to view the security log. There it was, a 2-factor OTP sent to his number just before the airline purchase. A password reset 5 minutes later from a coffee shop 2 blocks from our apartment. He was moving fast. But speed leaves heat. And heat leaves a trail. Step 3. Call the bank. A woman with a steady voice answered and asked for my identifying information. When she heard the words "drained account," her tone changed to the sort I'd use for difficult clients: slower, deliberate, as if guiding someone down a dark staircase. "I can file a fraud review," she said. "But because he's a co-owner, we're limited. If you have proof of intent to conceal or harm, that's different." I glanced at the text again. I drained the joint account. The confession sat there like a signature. "I have his admission," I said. "I'll email it now." She created a case file and promised a temporary freeze on new transfers pending review. It wasn't justice, but it was friction. Friction slows people down. When I hung up, the bell over my studio door tinkled lightly, though no one had entered. The winter wind slid under the frame like a thin, cold hand. I wedged a draft stopper against the threshold and went to the small front window. Outside, the street lamps along S.E. Water Avenue blinked into evening. A streetcar wailed. Portland in December smells like wet bark and espresso and last chances. The city did not care that my life had changed. It just kept exhaling. I packed a small bag laptop, hard drive, the leather notebook with receipts I had been saving on purpose, and the stainless steel tailor's awl I used to punch holes through thick canvas. It fit in my palm like a spare spine. I shut down the studio and crossed to my apartment building. A converted warehouse with red fire doors and a lobby that smelled faintly of oranges from the florist's delivery downstairs. As I rode the elevator, my mind tried to play old reels. Our first night here. Our houseplants. His jokes about the pigeons, but the generator inside me hummed louder and the reels burned away. At my door, I did not reach for the key. I pressed the doorbell camera app first. The live view winked on my welcome mat with the coffee stain he always forgot to wipe. The brass threshold. The corner of a neighbor's bicycle wheel. I scrubbed back 2 hours. There he was, Noah filling the frame with boxes, then returning with a suitcase. Eyes fixed somewhere that wasn't here. The timestamp marker slid over the seconds like a measured heartbeat. At 2:26 p.m. he looked directly into the lens. maybe by accident. And in that brief, unguarded close-up, I saw what I hadn't wanted to name relief. Greedy and soft. He lifted his phone. The tiny reflection in the glass captured the bright white rectangle of a boarding pass. I recorded the clip and saved it to the same folder under a new alias, Velvet, Winter. I had always admired Velvet's honesty. It shows every brush of the hand, every direction you've moved. I unlocked the door and went inside. The apartment was tidier than it should have been. He had wiped his fingerprints off our life and called it housekeeping. The print of Mount Hood above the sofa hung straight for the first time in months. The ceramic mixing bowl we bought from the Saturday market was gone. In the bedroom, the shirt I loved most on him, a plain blue Oxford, was missing from the hanger. And the ugly varsity hoodie he should have taken was still here. It struck me as funny. Almost betrayal has taste, and it is rarely good. I sat at the small desk by the window and opened the folder labeled, "For When." Inside a draft affidavit template Avery had given me after the first time we discussed what I refused to call a pattern, a checklist of assets, a note in my own handwriting that said, "Do not negotiate with fear." I called Avery and sent the text, the bank screenshots, the doorbell video. She replied in less than a minute, "I'm filing for an emergency restraining order on the account and a preliminary injunction re marital waste. Need any other physical proof?" Physical proof. Words can be called hysteria. Screenshots can be called context. But things are stubborn. I looked around the room for something that would hold up under cross-examination. On the dresser was the shoebox where we kept travel receipts and ticket stubs. He had left it. Perhaps because it was heavy with years he no longer wanted. I lifted the lid. On top was the stub from our first road trip, and beneath it a crumpled printout of a Sun Air confirmation. Dated today. With his frequent flyer number partly blacked out with a marker. He had tried to hide the identifier by hand, the way a child hides chocolate on his lips. I photographed the page under the desk lamp. The heat from the bulb made the paper warm. As if the evidence had a pulse, I sent the photo to Avery and added a line. Also have voice messages from MIL. Tone suggests knowledge of plan. The abbreviation was petty. But I did not feel petty. I felt exact. Avery replied, "Save everything. Do not respond to him. If he calls, record. If he shows up, do not let him in." I didn't expect him to show up. People who empty a home while you're measuring fabric for a client do not come back for conversation. They come back for what they forgot. At 6:10 p.m. he called. I watched the name light the screen and thought of all the times it used to be a small joy. I pressed record before I answered. "Clara," he said, breathless and theatrical. The way he sounded when he was about to ask for forgiveness before real contrition arrived. "Don't freeze the account. I'll transfer your half once I'm settled. This is better for both of us." "That's not how halves work," I said. I let the silence after sit like a pool he would have to cross. He tried again. "I left you the furniture. The studio. Your little business. It's all yours. I'm not the villain here. I just need to start over." "Then start with your own money." He sighed. "You always make everything a courtroom. And you always make everything a fire drill." The recorder captured the cadence of his inhale. "You don't have to do this." "You already did," I said. And hung up. I saved the file and backed it up twice to Velvet, Winter, into a clean USB with metal casing that felt like something I could throw through a window if I had to. I made tea I did not drink. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the row of books we bought on vacations, paperbacks with sun-browned edges, and tried to remember which ones we both liked. The answer was fewer than I had told myself. A soft knock sounded at the door. My body remembered fear before my mind chose it. I glanced through the peephole. Hannah, his younger sister, stood in the hall with her coat unbuttoned and her hair in a sudden, chaotic bun. Her eyes were wide and wet. I opened the door a fraction and left the chain on. She held up her phone. "I shouldn't be here," she said. "But you need this." On her screen was a family group chat I had always muted. A screenshot captured Noah's message from this morning ticket booked. Moving funds. Don't text me for a while. Under it. Their mother's reply. Do what you must. We'll sort the narrative later. A little farther up. A photo of our joint checkbook with a caption, deposited the last one. She won't notice. The generator inside me went very still. There it was, intent. Knowledge. Collusion. The 3 chords every legal song requires. Hannah bit her lip. Mom doesn't know I'm here. She thinks you'll overreact. I've been underreacting for a year. I said. She slipped me, airdropped 3 screenshots, and then, like someone dropping a contraband package, slid an envelope through the narrow opening. He sent this to Mom from the airport. It's a signed letter asking our cousin to hold some funds. Dad refused to get involved. Which is new. She swallowed. I'm not doing this for you. She added quickly. I'm doing this because I'm tired. Tired of what I asked. Of the way we make women clean up after men who run. For a second I loved her with a bright, aching gratitude. Thank you, I said. She flinched like the word hurt and nodded. Don't tell him I came. She whispered. He'll call me disloyal. He'll be right, I said. And you'll still be good. After she left, I photographed the letter. His signature looked like a road that didn't know where it wanted to go. I placed the envelope under the metal awl on my desk to flatten it, a tiny paper press to steady a collapsing world. Outside, a siren threaded down the avenue, thin and distant, as if reminding the city to keep breathing. Avery called again. This is enough to ask for a temporary restraining order and a freeze of any accounts connected to that cousin, she said. But I need you to anticipate a PR counterattack. They'll say you're vindictive, unstable, controlling. I'm an interior designer with a balanced ledger, I said. Let them call me organized. She laughed. Brief and human. We'll file tonight. Sleep if you can. After the call, I stood in the doorway of the closet and looked at the space his shoes had occupied. Dust outlined each absent shape like chalk. I swept the floor and found a boarding pass stub he had dropped, crumpled behind the hamper. Seat 21C. It smelled faintly of airport and sweat and the ghost of our last vacation. I sealed it in a clear sleeve and labeled it with the date and time. Evidence loves a good label. When the clock slipped past midnight, I pulled the tailor's awl from the cup on my desk and held it against my palm. The metal was cool and certain. I thought of all the measurements I had made in this room, hems, cornices, the width of space someone needs to feel like themselves. We measure to make things fit. We measure again when they don't. I whispered aloud. Because sometimes sentences only become true if they hear themselves. I will rebuild to my size. In bed, the phone glowed on the nightstand. Face down, I turned it over and typed a message I had rehearsed in my head for months and never intended to send. To Noah, I won't chase you. I won't cover you. I won't be the polite version of myself that keeps your story clean. I will be exact. I didn't send it. I saved it to drafts, unsent, and closed my eyes. Sleep did not arrive so much as it negotiated terms. Dawn peeled a thin layer of gold over the river, and somewhere a gull laughed like a heckler. I woke with the taste of metal in my mouth and the feeling that the city had inched closer overnight, as if Portland itself had leaned in to witness. On my phone, a bank alert waited emergency, hold in progress. Under it, an email from Avery with a subject line that read, simply filed. I showered, put on the dark work dress I saved for client presentations that required authority, and tied my hair back with the ribbon I used to bundle fabric samples navy. Neat. Practical. In the studio, I set the sign to by appointment only and brewed coffee that tasted like permission. I opened my notebook to a clean page and wrote the day's title, Part 1, The Taking. Under it, I wrote 3 verbs in a column: record, request, refuse. The letters looked like a stair I could climb. The doorbell camera chimed again. A delivery driver held a small padded mailer to the lens. I signed and carried it inside. No return address. Inside the mailer was a USB drive in a cheap plastic sleeve and a sticky note with a single sentence written in a hand I recognized from holiday cards. He practiced the story with me first. My mother-in-law. I did not open the drive right away. I sat with it, like you sit with a confession near enough to feel its heat. Not so near, it burns your hand. Then I plugged it into the offline laptop I kept for design software and watched a single audio file appear 12:06 rehearsal. MP3. I pressed play. His voice filled the room. Calm. Rehearsed. Almost gentle. If she says I stole, correct it to borrowed. If she mentions the flight, say my boss called me urgently. If she asks about the hotel, it was non-refundable. Keep repeating the word misunderstanding. People believe what you say 3 times. When the clip ended, I copied it twice and wrote to Avery. New evidence collusion rehearsed. Source MIL. My hands trembled for the first time. Not from fear, but from the weight of relief that arrives when a pattern finally stops pretending it isn't one. I locked the studio, put the USB and the screenshots in a zip pouch, and headed toward the streetcar stop. The air was bright and bitter. The sky over the Willamette wore a color that designers sell as slate, which is to say, a sadness that matches everything. I looked at the city I loved and felt it look back. Unsentimental and fair. Portland doesn't clap for you. It simply offers space and asks what you'll build with it. I tightened my scarf and stepped onto the car. In the window's reflection, I looked like a woman almost finished being afraid. When morning came, Portland was washed clean by a steady rain that clung to the glass like clear handwriting. I woke before the alarm, mind already listing tasks. Avery had texted at 5:42 a.m. Temporary hold confirmed. Court scheduling hearing within 48 hours. The words confirmed and hearing had a metallic taste. I boiled water, poured it over instant coffee, and stood barefoot on the concrete floor of my studio. Every sound felt sharpened, the kettle click, the hiss of steam, the city's distant machinery turning. I reviewed my folder of evidence. Velvet. Winter. 27 screenshots. 1 doorbell video. 1 voice recording. 1 handwritten letter. 1 USB confession. All labeled. All time-stamped. Still, a quiet voice asked, "Is it enough?" By 9, Avery called. "We'll meet at the courthouse at 2. The judge wants preliminary statements, only no exhibits yet. Keep everything organized, but don't hand it over until I cue you." I understand. Also, she added, expect them to spin the story. PR leaks. Sympathy campaigns. All of it. Don't read comments if they surface. "You won't," I said, though I knew I would. At noon, my phone buzzed a headline notification. Local designer accused of financial abuse. Husband claims emotional isolation. He was fast. He always was. The article quoted a source close to the family. I recognized the phrasing. It had his mother's perfume all over it. They described me as calculating, secretive, obsessed with control. I took a photo of the headline and filed it in a subfolder labeled Narrative Warfare. Sometimes reputation becomes evidence, too. Rain thickened into silver cords. The street outside blurred like an oil painting. I pressed my thumb against the tailor's awl on my desk until the pain steadied my breath. Courthouse, 2:00 p.m. The corridors smelled of paper and nerves. Avery's heels clicked beside me. Across the hall, Noah arrived in a navy suit I had once chosen for him. His tie slightly off-center. Behind him, his mother clutched a leather tote as if holding a newborn. He didn't look at me. He looked around me, the practiced avoidance of someone who knows a direct gaze might crack the story. The judge, a woman with silver hair and patience carved into her posture, called us forward. Avery opened with precision. "Your Honor, this is a case of marital waste and fraudulent withdrawal. We seek a full freeze pending investigation." Noah's attorney, A man with a voice like polished gravel countered smoothly. My client maintains transparency. The funds in question were moved temporarily for personal safety during escalating domestic conflict. Domestic conflict. The phrase landed like a mosquito in my ear, tiny. Whining. Designed to irritate. Avery lifted a hand. Your Honor. We have text-based admissions. Time-stamped transactions. And corroborating audio evidence. We request sealed review to protect privacy. The judge nodded. Submit your preliminary index. We'll reconvene for evidentiary hearing in 3 days. Interim order partial freeze until further review. Partial. The word echoed inside me like a missed step on a staircase. Outside. The marble corridor felt colder. Avery exhaled through her teeth. It's progress. We'll tighten the net once we authenticate the new recordings. I nodded. But inside. The generator flickered. Progress is a polite word for not yet safe. That evening, I spread documents across my work table like fabric swatches. The city outside blinked with neon reflections. I played the audio from the USB again, looping the section where he rehearsed. Keep repeating the word misunderstanding. And for misunderstanding, I wrote it in my notebook 3 times, then drew a line through each repetition. An email notification appeared from unknown. Zender, @protonmail.com. Subject, he's not done. Inside a single attachment named footage, behind the bank. MP4 and a sentence, check timestamp 1532. The clip opened to grainy footage from a parking lot camera. A silver sedan ours parked at the curb. Noah stepped out, glanced around, opened the trunk, and handed a duffel bag to a man whose face stayed off camera. At 1532. The man lifted his phone to text. The screen glowed just enough to reveal the digits PDX holding the alias of the account Avery had flagged. Proof of a physical handoff. Exactly what we'd needed. I sent the clip to Avery with the subject, New corroboration. Physical exchange. She replied, Perfect. Chain of custody from sender unknown. I typed back. But metadata intact. Later that night, as thunder crawled over the city, I found myself rereading the article again, counting how many ways strangers had defined me without ever seeing my face. Cold. Vindictive. Detached. Words designed to shame women who refuse to collapse. I closed the tab and opened the folder of client sketches. Lines. Angles. Space. That was what I understood proportion. Justice was only another kind of symmetry. My phone buzzed again, Hannah. He's panicking. Mom's telling him to disappear for a while. She said, quote, The designer can't chase you forever. I replied, Tell her clocks. Chase everyone. She sent back a photo her mother's desk covered in torn documents, a half-burned checkbook, and a sticky note reading, Delete all backups. Hannah captioned it, Too late. I smiled despite myself. Rebellion runs in the quiet ones. I thought, at 11:45 p.m., Avery called. Judge wants supplemental proof tomorrow morning. That footage might do it. But we'll need an affidavit verifying origin. I'll handle it. I said, Clara, be careful. Whoever sent it knew exactly what to send and when. That means they're inside his circle. I know, I said, staring at the rain-dark window. And inside circles are where stories finally collapse. The next morning, I visited the notary office beside a coffee shop we used to frequent. The clerk looked young enough to still believe in permanence. I signed. Dated. Sealed. The sound of the stamp echoed like a verdict. Outside. The river glimmered under a reluctant sun. I sent Avery the scanned affidavit. She replied instantly. Full freeze likely by end of day. Stay available. I went back to my studio and set out new fabric rolls, cool whites. Soft blues. Clients still needed spaces built while mine was still burning. Work was the only language that stayed calm. The bell above the door chimed. A man in a gray delivery jacket stepped inside. Package for Ms. Levin, he said. I signed, expecting supplies. Inside the box was a cheap wooden picture frame, and within it, a printed photo of me taken through the studio window yesterday. Mid-phone call. Mid-laugh. Across the glass. In red marker, stop digging. The generator inside me didn't hum this time. It roared. I turned the frame over and found a small sticker on the back Sun Air baggage service. Phoenix Branch. He was still there. Or someone working for him was. I photographed the frame, sealed it in evidence plastic, and texted Avery new intimidation attempt. Physical object. Traceable origin. She answered, excellent. That's retaliation bolsters your credibility. Her calm professionalism steadied me. I breathed once. Twice. 3 times. I was no longer just defending what had been taken. I was documenting who he had chosen to become. Outside, the rain stopped, and the city's reflection sharpened. My own face in the window looked unfamiliar harder. Clearer. Exact. Tomorrow's hearing would decide the freeze. But tonight I would sleep beside my evidence folders, the way soldiers sleep beside armor, not out of fear, but because truth, once forged, deserves company. I dimmed the lights, checked the locks twice, and whispered to the darkness, measure again. Cut clean. Morning broke colder than before, with frost crawling along the window edges like lace. The hearing that day would finalize the freeze order. I showered in silence, dressed in a pale blue coat, and slipped the notarized affidavit into a leather folder. Each motion felt ritualistic. Prepare. Protect. Proceed. By the time I reached the courthouse, the air smelled of whetstone and cigarettes. Avery met me at the door, her hair pinned tight, her eyes already scanning for cameras. They'll try to delay, she said quietly. Don't react. Inside, the opposing side was seated Noah, his attorney, and his mother, the same mother who once knit me scarves and told everyone I was the best thing that ever happened to her son. Now she glared as if I were the one who had emptied the account. The judge entered. We are here to determine whether the temporary freeze should become permanent pending investigation. Avery rose. Your Honor, my client presents newly authenticated video evidence demonstrating a physical transfer of funds to an unregistered account under the name PDX Holding. Metadata confirms the footage timestamp corresponds exactly to the withdrawal window. Chain of custody affidavit submitted this morning. The judge turned toward Noah's counsel. Response. He hesitated. We question the provenance of this footage. It could have been edited. Then subpoena the security company. Avery interrupted. Tone surgical. They'll confirm the recording originates from their own cloud database. For a moment, the courtroom breathed as one, then the judge spoke. Motion granted. Full freeze until further order. The sound of the gavel was both thunder and mercy. Noah's jaw tightened. His mother whispered something sharp behind her hand. Avery leaned close. That's the turn. He's cornered. Expect escalation. I nodded, though part of me wanted to collapse. Winning small battles still cost blood. Outside, reporters waited like gulls on the courthouse steps. I kept walking. Head high. Someone shouted. Clara, is it true he's in debt? Another yelled. Did you forge the recording? A microphone brushed me sleeve. I didn't answer. The best revenge is composure in the face of their curiosity. Avery touched my arm. Let me drive you. I shook my head. I'll walk. The rain had stopped, but puddles mirrored the sky like fragments of glass. With every step, I rehearsed calm inhale. Exhale. Focus. Yet beneath that discipline, memory pulsed. We had once built everything together, the studio lease, the shared savings, the joint account meant for future children. I'd designed our logo myself, C&N Studios craft and narrative. Irony has a sense of humor. When I reached my apartment, the answering machine blinked red. 3 messages. The first, silence. The second, a man's voice. Low. You think freezing money freezes people? It doesn't. The third, a soft, deliberate breath before hanging up. Threats without signatures always sound the same, like cowardice trying to imitate control. I recorded each one onto a backup drive, labeling them Voicemail Series A. Evidence was oxygen now. Breathing meant documenting. That night, Hannah called again. Her whisper trembled. Mom's losing it. She thinks you hacked the bank. Noah's drinking. He said something about deleting drives. Which drives? The blue one, he kept it in the drawer under the printer. Said it was Plan B. End quote. Jen, you get it? Pause. Then if I do, you owe me coffee for life. Double espresso. He promised. Within the hour, she sent a photo, the drive beside a half-empty glass of whiskey. Then another message, copying everything to cloud. You didn't hear this from me. I stared at the image until the screen dimmed. Betrayal. Inside betrayal, his sister, saving me from his cover-up. Family trees have roots that twist in every direction. 2 days later, Avery forwarded me an encrypted zip file from an anonymous sender. Came to my office. No. Return address. You're going to want to see this. Inside were 15 PDFs, internal emails between Noah and a consultant from Sunair Holdings. Subject lines: asset diversion, media coordination. Phase 2, quiet withdrawal. Every timestamp matched the days he'd claimed to be visiting investors. One email read, if she contests. Leak emotional abuse narrative. Public sympathy ensures settlement. I printed it and laid it beside our wedding photo, the one where he had kissed my forehead under fairy lights. The contrast between image and evidence was almost artistic. Avery's text followed. This proves intent. We can move for fraud charges now. Fraud. The word felt heavy but clean. The next morning, the studio door creaked open before I'd unlocked it. I froze. A man in a maintenance jacket stepped inside, holding a clipboard. Inspection, he said. Gas line check. I didn't schedule one. He smiled thinly. Routine. Won't take long. Every instinct screamed wrong. I reached for my phone. 1 second, let me confirm with the building office. He turned abruptly, muttered something, and left, through the glass. I watched him cross the street and climb into a car, the same silver sedan from the footage. License plate blurred by rain. I texted Avery immediately. Possible intimidation. Follow-up. Same car as before. She replied, document. Don't chase. Safety first. I obeyed the first part. The second was harder. That evening, Hannah arrived at my door drenched from rain, clutching a small hard drive. Here, she said. Before I lose my nerve, I let her in, handed her a towel. You shouldn't have risked this. She shook her head. He's not who you think he is. Clara. The emails, those were the polite ones. This drive. When we opened it, folders unfolded like secrets, blooming. Inside, fake invoices. Dummy accounts. Offshore statements, all under variations of his name. Hannah's face went pale. He used my ID for some of these. My chest tightened. You could be implicated. That's why I'm here, she said. I want it out before he burns me too. I copied everything to an encrypted vault. The progress bar crawled. Each percent a heartbeat. When it finished, I exhaled. You just turned evidence into survival. She gave a half smile. Guess betrayal runs in the family. Later that night, I sat alone at my desk. The city outside flickered like static. I played the audio from the drive, Noah's voice dictating notes for a secondary settlement fund. His tone calm, confident, unaware the mic was live. Then came another voice, his mother's. She'll break soon. Just keep pressure. I paused the playback. The room seemed to shrink around me. Pressure. Indeed. I drafted an email to Avery urgent. Expanded collusion evidence between Noah and his mother. Suggest filing joint motion. Her reply arrived within minutes. Proceed. This changes everything. Sleep didn't come easily. I dreamed of underwater rooms. Of money fluttering like paper fish. Of people speaking in reversed words. When I woke, the dawn was gray and unsteady. On the kitchen table lay the frame from before. Still marked stop. Digging. I turned it over again. Tracing the sticker, Sunair Baggage Service, Phoenix Branch. Phoenix. Rebirth. Irony again. I opened my laptop and booked a flight under my maiden name. Sometimes the only way to end a story is to visit the place where it began. The next part of the plan wasn't just legal, it was personal. Evidence was the weapon. But truth, the kind you deliver in person, was the strike that ends the fight. Phoenix greeted me with heat that shimmered above the tarmac. The air was drier. Thinner. As if every breath had to be earned. I rented a car and drove past mirrored office parks until the skyline dissolved into industrial blocks. The address from the Sunair Holdings sticker led me to a warehouse painted the color of ash. A sign read, "Authorized personnel only." Perfect. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed. Rows of metal shelves stretched endlessly, filled with labeled storage boxes. A receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I'm here for a retrieval under client code CN12. She hesitated. "We don't usually allow walk-ins." I placed a folded paper on the counter, an official subpoena signed by the Arizona circuit clerk, prepared by Avery in advance. "You do now." Her lips tightened, but she nodded and disappeared through the back door. Minutes later, she returned with a sealed folder and a small lockbox. My name, Clara Nichols, was printed on the manifest, though I had never registered anything here. Inside the folder were lease papers, bank routing forms, and a document titled Beneficiary Transfer Agreement, transferring all remaining holdings to Noah Reed, executor. He had already moved the assets before the divorce. Using my identity as cover, I felt something inside me break. Not from shock, but from clarity. He had buried his tracks here, believing no one would ever find the grave. I photographed everything, emailed Avery, and drove straight to the local police station. By evening, Phoenix burned orange beneath the desert sun. My phone rang Avery. They confirmed receipt. "This is it. Clara, you've got him. Federal jurisdiction now." For a long moment, I said nothing. My reflection in the window looked like someone I didn't fully know stronger. Colder, yet strangely free. The trial began 6 weeks later. Reporters called it the Desert Fraud Case. Noah appeared thinner, dressed in gray, his expression flat. His mother avoided my eyes completely. When Avery presented the Sunair documents, the room went still. She walked the jury through every step: wire transfers, forged signatures, the offshore link. Then she played the audio, Noah's voice. Calm and methodical, planning phase 2 of the extraction. The silence that followed was a kind of justice all its own. The verdict came swiftly: guilty on all counts: fraud, identity theft, and obstruction. His mother faced conspiracy charges for aiding concealment. Outside, microphones flashed. But I kept walking, just as I had months before. The difference was the weight or lack of it. I didn't celebrate. Justice isn't champagne, it's quiet water after years of drought. I used the settlement to rebuild my studio. Renamed it Measure and Mend. The motto stitched into the entryway wall: cut clean, stitch true. Avery stopped by the opening night. "You realize you've become a cautionary legend," she said, half smiling. "I'd rather be a blueprint," I replied. Hannah sent flowers, white lilies, and a note for rebuilding what he tried to erase. I placed them by the window where the light fell gently through glass. Months later, a letter arrived from a federal account recovery office. Inside was a check compensation from assets seized overseas. At the bottom, one line: Printed small. Recovered by Phoenix Division. Phoenix Rebirth. The irony came full circle. That night, I stood outside the studio. The city hummed softly. And I whispered, "It's done." Because revenge had never been the destination. It was merely the bridge to reclaiming peace. Call to action YouTube style ending. If you believe in justice that doesn't shout but proves. Share this story. Tell me in the comments, have you ever faced betrayal and turned it into strength like? Subscribe. And turn on the notification bell for more real stories of courage, truth, and rebirth.